Hey everyone, and welcome back to another live episode of the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. Again, thank you to everybody watching these that continues to watch this show week over week. It's a massive honor to be able to have you spending your Thursday nights with us tonight. Now, I've got a very good friend of the show, good friend of mine, and for those of you that watch the show, well, understand the relationship between Terrence and I, and know that I'm really happy to kind of put a little bit of a stamp on the brand a little bit, encouraging the entire flex thing. Now, my puny little arm is not worth showing off, but Terrence is always super kind enough to remind me about it when I do see him and the flex. And it's one of those things that, I'd like to think that because of that, maybe I might be written into the history of Aganorsa. Maybe I'm like a half of a footnote, or barely a footnote within the history for like 3 seconds. Maybe he'll let me have that one day. I don't know, but until then, I can tell you right now, Terrence is here with us tonight, and he's got the famous coat that has caused so much controversy in the last year and a half. How you doing, Terrence? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, how you doing, brother? Let's get that flex in there. You got a flex there.
Absolutely.
You'd be proud of
Absolutely,
it.
dude. I am. I am smoking the rare leaf tonight. So since Terrence has already lit up a cigar and I feel like I want to join him right now, let's do the "What are you smoking tonight" part of the show, sponsored by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Thank you so much, Steve Sakas. So Terrence, what are you smoking tonight?
Smoking the Rare Leaf Maduro. Wonderful blend, my favorite blend overall, and just a delicious, rich, full cigar.
Now, how's that one been accepted? Is that one good seller for you guys, or is it just your one of your favorite brands?
I mean, it's definitely my favorite, and then it's part of our select program, so only 200 accounts in the country have access to it. It was just number 2 cigar of the year in Cigar Snob magazine. Our friends
Well,
over at Cigar Snob, so
well,
it's gotten some accolades, and
well
it does
deserved.
pretty well for us, and it's my favorite.
Well, it's very well deserved, and I will let you explain what I'm smoking tonight. Is you know the blend, and I
Rare
don't.
fu- Rare Fusion, right?
Yes,
Yep. Yeah, Rare
yes.
Fusion. Yeah, Rare Fusion is a combination. It was an exclusive for smoking cigars, and it's a combination of our two most exclusive blends, Supreme Leaf and Rare Leaf. So it's a Rare Leaf. Both the natural and the Maduro are heavy in Criollo 98 tobaccos from Esteli, and the Supreme Leaf is heavy in Corojo 99 tobacco from Jalapa. So we took parts of each, the wrapper from Supreme, binder from this, some fillers, and we created a fusion of the two, which I did not think would be successful. Usually that stuff doesn't really work very well. But in this case, it worked out really well. I've got to give all the credit to Abe. It was his idea, and it's been a home run. The Smoke In crew loves it, and it's a cigar that a lot of people have been introduced to Aganorsa through.
Yeah, and it was a one and done. This was I bought 2 boxes when it came out. It was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so we did 2 years ago we did the Toro, and then last year we did or 2 years ago, no, 3 years ago we did the Toro, and then 2 years ago we did the Robusto.
Yeah, so this is the box press Toro. So this has got a little bit of age on it.
Yeah, I got 3 years on there.
Um, and in the last time I actually smoked this was the last time I opened the last box that I had, which was about 49 episodes ago when you were on the show last, 50 episodes ago when you were on the show last. So,
Remember, you can't
um,
take them with you. You gotta validate. You can't
oh,
take
I
those
know,
with you.
but you know what it is I've got a humidor. Thank you so much, Steve Saka, for sponsoring the "What Are You Smoking Tonight" part of the show. You know what it is though is it's it's one of those things that every cigar smoker longs to get to that part, and that's in their collecting where they actually can forget about certain cigars. And then they go through, and I've got several Aganorsas in here, and I'm going through and I'm looking at boxes. I'm like, my gosh, I totally forgot. I still have this rare fusion. And the last time I smoked it was when you were on the show. So hey, I'll go ahead and bust it out. But I try to keep some some nice ones to forget about for like 6 months to a year because it's always fun to go
Yeah,
shopping in
revisit.
your own
Yeah,
humidor, you know.
sure.
Um, so what is everyone smoking tonight? We've got Mike, we've got Cigar Stogie. Bruce is getting ready to do some validations. We all know who Bruce is. Richard's down in Florida. Um, okay, so Cigar Stogie. I use just I found this really nice flex head shaver that I use. It's probably made for the face, but it flexes really nicely, so I do use it on my head because clearly I don't use anything on the face. But since you asked me the question, Terrence, what are you? Are you Gillette? Are you Bic? What do you use to shave with?
Well, first of all, I hate shaving. I usually end up, it's really whatever's on sale when I pick up razors. I use disposable razors for the most part. I've had a couple nice razors, but like I end up like losing them or something, and they're expensive, and so I just kind of I use a nice fresh disposable and shave once to maybe twice a week if I have something special going on. I didn't. As you can tell, it's getting late in the week here. I gotta.
And the show wasn't special enough for him to shave. No, I'm just kidding.
No, no, no. I'm talking to like I'm going to a gala. I'm going to something like that. Like it's got to be something that is somewhat hoity-toity or something.
I've cut down on my head shaving. I usually shave now about every 2 days. Um, but what I've done is I switched to, and it's just really it's expensive, right? It's like a $70 shaver in itself, but it uses the individual blades, so it
Ah,
doesn't come with the thing. So, and I do that because I found that the razors from like Gillette and stuff, they drag too much over my big ass head and they don't flex the way it needs to.
yeah,
So I buy their like $20, $22, which is expensive for the little single throwaway ones. For like 100 blades, but they're like a Japanese steel, and it could be as long as it is, and just run it over. So it makes it easier when you get really good sharp
even your
blades.
razor flexes. You got
Even my
you
razor
got
flexes.
yeah.
Well, Terrence, thank you so much for coming by tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, you always have a home here. So let's kind of start here. What have you guys been up to? You were just mentioned you got number three in Cigar Snob,
Two. Don't
or
knock us down a notch. Yeah.
number two. I apologize. Number two in Cigar Snob. So when you start your year off like that, does that give you like a jolt of electricity to kind of push you through maybe some of the slower areas of the year, which is winter?
Yeah, so it's always good, to get recognized. That always makes you feel good. When you say it, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. When somebody, that is more objective says it means a lot more. So that's part of it. Um, Cigar Snob, I think, is an incredible magazine, and it's one of the few like magazines of paper left out there that I think is still thriving and and,
Hmm.
and doing really well. So, and I love the people over there. But we actually have a busy beginning of the year. We have a program for our retail partners that kicks off in January, and it's been a successful program for us, and it triggers a lot of buying. And so, actually, the beginning of the year for us is a great time of year because it really kicks off sales for the year.
So when you get in number two inside Cigar Snob, do you take does like the company do like a celebration internally, buy a cake,
Yeah, I mean, I would
cupcakes
say
or
I don't. I mean, I don't.
donuts? Does it people get
I think
coffee?
the main thing we do is we promote that we want it a lot. We create ads. We make sure our retail partners are aware. We do email blasts. I think that's the way we celebrate is we make sure as many people as possible are aware we won something. So that's usually the celebration aspect of it.
Now, when you're in the running for these things, I've always wondered this, and I don't know if I've ever should really even ask this question to anybody. But when you're in the running, obviously, you take something like the Grammys, okay, and I'm not saying it's equivalent to
Yeah.
it is in the cigar world, right? But you take something like Grammys or Oscars, they actually go out like protest for a winner. So when you guys get in the running, do they give you an advance warning? Hey, listen, you guys made our top 20 list, but we're not going to tell you the number, or you made our top 10, but we're not going to like, do you guys get any advance warning on
No,
any of
no,
that?
no, nobody. They don't tell you. They don't tell you anything. You wake up and you find out.
Okay, so that's a good way to wake up.
Yeah, there's worse ways. That's for sure.
So as you guys kind of are starting your year, I know cigar sales were kind of down a little bit last year from what I was told and from multiple retailers. How are you guys setting up 2026, kind of getting over that boom hump of COVID the last couple of years? How are you guys setting up 2026 for success?
Yeah, so I mean, we're still growing, and we're not growing at the rate we were during COVID, but we're still like last year. We still had a growth, even with when you factor
Mhm.
tariffs and all that stuff. We still grew, and I think the reason for that is we never kind of went haywire during COVID with the $20+ cigar craze. Everything we make is still MSRP under $20, and even with most state taxes, most of it would still be under that. And then we still have a lot of stuff that's under $10. And with time going on, people have less disposable income. They're not getting checks from the government. They have other things to spend it on other than cigars, whiskey, and Home Depot. And so people are not just kind of buying anything at whatever price anymore. And I think that's really helped us in the short term. We probably lost some sales because people were willing to pay more for things, and we just didn't feel. Again, not to say that a cigar can't cost in that range. There's great cigars
Oh, for
that
sure.
do.
Totally.
It was just more. It seemed that there was like this trend of like, oh, people will pay more. Well, let's charge them more. And we never went that route. And I think it's starting to pay dividends now when people go, oh my $10 cigar is now a $15 cigar. I can buy this JFR for $8, or I can buy this validation for 10, like my old cigar used to be, or whatever it
Mhm.
is. So I think that's been really good for us. I think the biggest thing too, and that we try to make sure we stay on top of this, is you got to work again the way you didn't during COVID. During COVID, people just threw money at you. I'll never forget the only trade that in 2022, because there wasn't a trade show in 2021. But in 2022, that's the only time I've ever been in this business where people literally like didn't, or no, 2021, excuse me, 2020 there wasn't a trade show, but in 2021, uh, they they just came up to the booth and were like, "You have cigars? Great." They didn't ask you what the cost. They didn't ask you what the deal was. They didn't ask. They didn't. They just came up and bought cigars from you, and that was something I've never seen before or since. So you've got to go out there and work. You've got to go out there and work with your retail partners. A lot of what we do is also to there's two sales. There's a sale to the retailer and there's a sale to the consumer. And if you don't have the sale to the consumer, which is the second sale, you've got a problem at some point. The retailer will say, "Listen, I love you, but the cigars are backed up to the roof." So we've been working with our retail partners for social media co-promotion, running store specials, making sure we're proactive with events, our staff trainings with the Fuma tasting, both staff trainings and events with the Fumas, and just really getting out there and grinding, and that's really the way it's going to be, which was the way it was before. Just a couple of years there, you didn't have to work too hard to do pretty well.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed that you guys seem to do really well is obviously, yes, you care about that first sale to the shop owner, but you guys are really, really good about making sure that second sale happens as well. Because you guys have a really strong social media. You're out there, you're everywhere. If they follow you on Instagram, they see all the postings, all the events that you do. And yes, I actually have some of those fumas here in my humidor too. Those are actually really cool. If any of you guys have never been able to have the opportunity to do the Aganorsa tasting experience,
Well, you got some Fuma, man. You got all sorts of stuff
dude,
over there.
I'm an Aganorsa fanboy. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. I you guys were one of the first cigars, not the first, but probably within the first, I don't know, 15 cigars that I ever smoked. And
Oh wow.
And or that I smoked when I started to get back into cigars, and I've been a fan ever since. And in our relationship, you coming on the show and supporting the way you do, like, yeah, of course. No, I'm Aganorsa out. I mean, that's just. But what you guys really do well, though, is there's brands out there that focus on the initial shop sale, and then you really don't see them on social media. You don't see the interaction. You don't see people like you within the company or your equivalent within the company going out and doing, and I'm not saying this is every brand, but something that Aganorsa does very well is that consumer engagement aspect for the shop owners. Whether you're at an event or the shop directly or not, I think the shop owners understand that because you guys are so heavy in your marketing, in your social media, that engagement alone is selling a ton of cigars at their shop. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it helps. It's always hard to know. One of the things that's very difficult about marketing, even with you have more information now with that you can get analytics and stuff. But yeah, the joke is always half your marketing works. You don't know which half. It, so it's hard to say what exactly it is that like is the thing that helps the most or helps in a particular case or anything like that. But we do find is that the more ways you kind of try to reach the end consumer, the better you are. So again, you know, we run ads. We have our social media. We try to be active on the different boards and interacting with consumers there. We try to, you know, obviously do events. We try in any way we can to like make that connection and bring them in. You know, our Aganorsa Acolytes group on Facebook, getting
Yep.
people to partake in that. Our YouTube channel, we have a lot of great content on there. So we use everything, and then something's working. I just couldn't tell you, you know, if it's something like 1+1 is 3, it kind of all comes together, or if certain parts of it are the most effective and other parts really don't do anything. It's hard to tell exactly how you end up becoming somebody's you know how somebody becomes aware of your cigar, becomes you know knowledgeable about it, and becomes passionate about it. But that's the goal, and that's what we're always trying to do.
And you see where people are posting too. You see what people are posting, how they're posting with it, when they're doing their validations or when they're doing the flex, when they're doing all that stuff. You can actually kind of softly see. It's fun to see a mix of it all, right?
Yeah, I mean
Um,
that tells you something too for sure. I mean, you see like how often people how you know how often you get tagged, how often
yeah,
we run search words and see how, you know how many times it appears, is it appearing more, is it appearing less, that kind of stuff. That's all helpful. And again, there's also you know like I don't want to underplay like working with retail staff and getting the retail staff to push your product. That's probably one, if
big
not the
time.
most important thing. It's damn far up there because there's lots of people that you know they like cigars, they smoke different cigars. It's a hobby for them or something they enjoy or passion, but they're not necessarily like following everything. And so there's a lot of people that you know I'm never going to reach through our Instagram
True,
or something
true.
like that. But you know we've reached them through our retail partners who have you know have staff that are very passionately promoting the product. So and that honestly, if there's one thing I can tell you that definitely works is that and you know you see stores there's this chain of stores out in Arizona Castros where relatively new when they opened we did staff trainings with them all and again I thought they were maybe doing something illegal. I'm like, why are they buying so many cigars? I asked her up. I was like, what's going on? They're like, no, the staff is on board. That you know, we did the staff trainings. They really appreciate it. This guy likes this one. That guy likes that one. And then when I went out there for an event, you saw them. You saw the guys go in the humidor. Oh, you've got to try this cigar. You got to try that cigar. That seems like a simple thing, but really, if you have store employees, store managers, or the owner, you know, advocating for you on a consistent basis, that is a huge difference maker. And so that's definitely something that we try to do as well. And again, that like in terms of that's something that you can't run analytics on other than the sales. You know, you look at the store and the store
Mhm.
is selling more. Well, that works, but you're not necessarily seeing it, you know, through social media posts and things like that.
No, but to your point, and I think you've been in the cigar industry a lot longer than I have. I mean, you went over to Aganorsa in 2017. I think it was 2008. You started at Casada.
Oh, you're good.
So you've been in this industry, but you Manuel Casada is not an uncle of yours, but you call him your uncle. So you've been in the family for a long time inside cigars. Do you think the days of the actual tobacconist are kind of gone within shops, and so you're getting much more of kind of like a rotating door of employees? So when you go in and do trainings and stuff like that, that's definitely a step above and beyond. They didn't do trainings like what you do back in the 90s. But you did have the tobacconist that worked at the same shop for 20 years. Does that kind of make sense what I'm getting
No,
at?
that's a great point and a great kind of question as well. I would say one is this, the industry just traditionally doesn't do training really. They just kind of throw you in there. I mean, they don't really like. I didn't get any training when I started for sure. They're kind of like, oh, you're here now, and off you go. And they, I mean, again, that doesn't mean they didn't teach you about cigars in general, but certainly a lot of things, especially on the sales side, they don't really train. So I've always tried to kind of do that just as something that a lot of people really don't do. And again, you see more of it now. But to your point, which is probably even more relevant, is that yes, it used to be that the store owner or the store managers or even the employees had been there a very long time, and you could kind of all you really had to do is kind of get them a cigar and kind of give them some information about it, and they were going to make a determinant on their own whether they liked it, whether it was the right brand for their store, and that kind of stuff. And that was about the extent of it. You see less of that now. You see a lot of people that it's a part-time job, it's a retirement job. They do it for a couple of years, before, during college or when they first get out of college or whatever, or it's kind of or they jump from store to store, and you see new people, and so that's something where we do proactive trainings, like especially at the larger accounts of ours. We have to do it, at least if not once a year. If we try to do it, we try to do it once a year, but I'd say once to every year to 2 years, because you'll go in there and there'll be a whole bunch of new people that weren't there at the last training, don't know of you. There's more brands now than there were back then. So like, there's, a trade show, a company might come out with a cigar, a new size of something. I mean, there wasn't a lot to like remember.
Hmm.
Now every company's got a whole bunch of stuff coming out. It's hard for me to keep track of, people will be like, hey, that cigar that you make for so-and-so, what size is that coming? I'm like, I don't know. I have a hard enough time keeping track of call them. And it's because it's so much, there's so much going on, and that makes it difficult to retain. So you're getting shot with more information. People are not in a position in every industry. People don't have a career that they went to work for the place and they retired in 20 or 30 years and that was that. So it's very important to be proactive in that regard, because if you're not, the next time you go in, there's a whole bunch of new people. They've never heard of you, or they heard of you, but they don't know much about you. They've never had your cigar for whatever reason, and that's a big problem if you're trying to get those people to promote your cigar.
If you had to guess roughly, without naming any names, of course, that's not what I'm asking. But if you had to roughly guess a percentage of yearly turnover within cigar shops, what would you throw a dart at a wall and hope it stuck for?
I mean, I think as the bigger it gets, the more likely that it has high turnover.
Do you
Smaller
say
shops.
the bigger the shop gets?
Well, if you have, like, for instance, like a store that has like 6, 7 stores, or a chain of stores, compared to a single brick and mortar that's been around for a long time. The older brick and mortars tend to keep employees for longer. One, it's a lot of time they're the employees that were there 20 years ago that are
Yes.
still there, in some cases. And it's a little bit more, you're working for a person. Oh, I've known John since I was a kid, and there's more of a family type of relationship there. As it gets bigger, You get less of that because it's impossible. Like the owner is at one location. He comes by the stores, but he's not there all the time. He can't possibly have that necessarily a deeper relationship with 60 employees as somebody does with 4 employees. So, and so you see it higher on those sides than you do on the smaller stores. But I'd probably say, I don't know. I mean, a retailer would be the one to ask, but I would say 20%. 20% would be an industry average, and I bet you it's higher for bigger stores or chain stores.
I mean, you probably often go into shops where you're like, "Oh, you're new. I was here 6 months ago. You're new." You know?
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. It happens. You'll go in and there's new people. Almost on the bigger stores, especially as the number of stores goes up, it's almost every time.
Have you?
Now, again, I'm not going in 10 times a year. But if I go in once or twice a year, there's almost always somebody new.
Have you ever thought about putting together like a small training program that like a shop owner can institute as like a questionnaire type deal just for easy, quick training for new people? Because I mean, you're the person to do it. You do this at so many shops throughout. I was just wondering if you've ever considered putting together like a not like a course, right?
We have
we
have a little bit of that. I mean, some of our YouTube videos we kind of utilize for that purpose. Yeah, the problem is that like for most, I'd say shop employees that it's a part-time job or they're relatively new, to give them something to read is not really going to give them a lot of value for the most part. There's certain types of people that really enjoy reading, and those people usually they already did the research. They're reading your website, they're reading everything they can about you. For people who are there, they like cigars, but it's their job. I don't feel it's effective as being there in person. Now, again, it's not always me. We have our reps who do this, and they go in there and they do these trainings. I can't possibly do them all. And we'll do Zooms, and Zooms have been affected with stores. You get 12 different people, from all over the place on the Zoom. But even that is not as I always feel that when you're in person in front of them, you get the most out of them. It's easy when you're on a Zoom to kind of zone out or look at your phone or look at something else or not pay attention. Or not pay attention to the whole thing. There's a lot of distraction now. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to get people to sit there and really focus in for a long period of time. Even when you're present, and when you're present, though, it's much easier because you can make jokes. You can read the room. You see who's more interested in what you're talking about. You see the people who are getting confused, so you can really adjust to the crowd, and that's, to me, by far still the most effective. I haven't seen anything that would be what you're talking about that I feel would really have a meaningful impact.
Well, it was just a question to throw out at the fly. It's that would be such
I wish it would be great.
But that would be such a big undertaking as well.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I think I think to do it if it in an effective way would be a big undertaking, because you'd really have to have you'd have to be really thoughtful in how you put it together, and again, how do they show it? Do they have a TV in the place, or is it going to be on a laptop? There's all different types of things that would come into play that you'd have to spend a lot of time and energy on. So I think we, like I said, it's one of the reasons we have reps is so that they can go in the store and do this type of thing. It's not just obviously they want to sell, they're there to sell, but like I said before, you need that second sale, and the store trainings and the interaction with the employees. Informal is always great, but a lot of times it can be some semi-informal. You sit down with them, you talk about what they like, what sells in the store. You get them talking, you get them telling you what they're comfortable with and not comfortable with, what they like and what they don't like. And a lot of times that's even more beneficial to you than talking to them. Listen, it's more effective to listen to them.
No, it is. And so much of what you have brought to Aganorsa is a philosophy, is a different philosophy, I think, for the industry. I think you brought in this training aspect of it that yes, some companies do, but Aganorsa seems to be, and I've gone through it now twice. Aganorsa really does seem to be the best at it for how you guys break down the flavor profiles and get to taste everything, and then you show the instructions of smoking all of them together. Like you do it really really well. If you've also been on a lot of podcasts. I think probably at least once a month you're on something, or it
Uh,
probably feels that way.
It's not my first rodeo, I'll tell you
No,
that. Yeah.
if Aganorsa was to disappear as a company, say 20 years from now, and somebody bought it and tried to revive it, using your old interviews and public comments and things you've mentioned about, what critical decision or philosophy do you think they would still miss in your approach to how you run Aganorsa?
That's a good question. Again, I think when you buy a company, you always have to say like, what are you buying? Like, what are you getting from it? So if you buy a factory is four walls, a roof, and rolling tables. I mean, obviously, I'm
Mhm.
simplifying it. It's very hard to manufacture, but does that give you anything necessarily? I mean, are all the employees going to stay? Are the supervisors going to stay? You have to look at all that kind of stuff. And so, anyone, if it was somebody else, they would have to look at, okay, what appealed to people about this company? Um, what can we utilize from it to maintain that appeal? But also, we're different people, and we have our own attributes. How can we integrate what we do? And that would be very similar to what I did when I joined, which was that
Mhm.
okay, I have a certain personality and I have certain things I'm good at or not good at. And Aganorsa has these qualities, and these are what are the special things about it. How do you kind of merge that um, most effectively? So that would be what you'd kind of have to do, because I can't be, you know, Steve Saka. I can't be Rocky. I can't be Carlito Fuente. I can't be my uncle. I can't be Placencia. I can't be anybody other than myself. And neither can anybody else be me. And so you'd have to really just do that equation. See what's there that people liked. How can you cultivate that in a way that's genuine to yourself and utilizing your own attributes?
How would, how do you determine when to cut something off when you're like, yeah, it's done? How do you make the decision to do something that your team doesn't want you to do when you know that it would be the best decision? How do you handle that? Because that's a really big core business philosophy and how people that run teams approach other opinions. Do you still do what you want to do, or is it okay? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a two-part thing there. Yeah, I mean, I think you have to really listen to me. I always joke that I'm not that smart. What I do basically is I listen to other people. I take their ideas and pass them off as my own, and I've made a very successful career out of that. You know, you're a good example. We have the flex out of that. So you do listen to people and you do say, does that make sense? Does that not make sense? And especially if you hear, in some cases, you hear the same comment over and over again about things. When I first joined the company, it was very easy. It was the same comment. I could have played a recorder for people. I'd be like, "Is this what you think?" And they would say, "Oh yeah, that's it." I mean, it was the same comments over and over again. So you kind of say, "Okay, this is where we're strong. This is where we're not strong." And you kind of you listen, or in the case, hey, let's do the flex thing. Oh, well, let's try that. That's an interesting concept. Let's see if that works. And so you sometimes it's an individual idea that's unique, and you try it out. And other times you just consistently hear the same things, and you feel that it's a safe bet in that regard. Um, the times where you don't listen generally are where um, the reasons they're giving you aren't are basically kind of dogmatic reasons. So they'll say like, "Oh, well, that never works," you know, or they'll say like, "Yeah, that like nobody's ever done that before," or it's just kind of it's not really thought out. It's more like, and I'll give you an example, like with the Supreme Leaf. Which again, I did not design. Brian from Pravada came up with the color scheme and all that kind of stuff for it. But when we presented it to our reps, they hated it. They were like, "This is gonna be a disaster. Like, this is an Aganorsa, and these colors are not cigar colors." And they were just totally opposed to it. And again, this is not a knock on them because it was not something that they had seen before, so they had no reason to believe it was going to be successful. But that reasoning was just kind of like it didn't really, it wasn't well thought out for me. It wasn't like, well, this is why it won't work. It was more like that just won't work. And it did work. It was very successful. Usually, in fairness, like once the numbers show up, they go, oh man, people are calling me, trying to order this, and it's a lot of customers are asking for it and all that kind of stuff. They change their mind on it, and so once it's successful, success has 1,000 fathers. Failure's an orphan, and then you start hearing, oh, well, I like this about it, and I always knew it would work, that kind of stuff. And then some of them will say, I was wrong. I really like the, people are more inquisitive about the brand now because of this. So and again, I'm wrong about things. There's things that I thought wouldn't work, and we've done them, and I'm like, oh man, that worked really well.
What's one of those?
That 10 by 100, I thought that was. I thought that was kind of beyond the pale, and we have people that smoke that cigar every day.
I know, you were telling me about it. You said one guy smokes that every single day.
Yeah, when he can't get it, he smokes the little one, which is the 8x80. He calls it the little one. So the 8 by, so that worked. And again, so I play the same. To me, sometimes I don't think something will work, but I don't necessarily have unless I have a very good reason why I don't think it'll work. I'm oftentimes willing to try something that other people are very passionately about thinking will work. So when they're like, yes, this will definitely work, this will definitely work, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, but I don't have a real strong specific reason why it won't. I'll go along with it because they obviously have a deep commitment to it, and honestly, people want to be right. If somebody tells you, that's another benefit of doing things that a lot of people tell you to do, is when you do it, they have an interest in you being successful. They have an interest in it doing well because it was their idea. So that's important. Well, at the end of the day, you just want to win, and however that is, if that idea comes from me or you or anyone else, who cares? Once the thing works and it generates more business, more brand awareness, that's the name of the game. And however we get to that, as long as it's legal and moral, that's all that matters.
See, I love that answer. I think Supreme Leaf worked because it was so different than anything else Aganorsa put out. I think it was the shock factor of like the new color in basketball shoes or whatever. Like oh my gosh, Aganorsa's kind of redoing itself. I've got to try this now. I kind of feel mentally that ultra different is a draw. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. People said one of two things. They said, I saw that cigar, I noticed it, and I had to try it, or I saw that cigar, it caught my attention, and I bought it because I wanted to hate it. And
well, thank you.
And then they ended up liking it. I think Kevin from New England Cigar Militia, he told me that. He's like, I bought it because I didn't want to like it. Like I thought it looked stupid. And so, but the bottom line is I always say the worst thing a cigar can be is fine. It's like, Ryan, how was that cigar? Oh, it's okay. That's death.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in trying it. I'm not interested in anything. If you had said, oh, how's that cigar? And you go, that's the worst cigar I've ever had. I'd be more interested. I'd be like, really? The worst? Man, maybe let me try that. I want to see how bad it is. And again, obviously both are bad. But one generates attention and interest, and the other one you're forgotten. And and being forgotten is the worst part, because the best cigar that people don't hear of or are not excited about or don't know anything about, that doesn't catch their attention is a dead cigar. I mean, that cigar, it has no chance. So you really have to kind of bang people on the head and put yourself out there and do it in a way that's again, hopefully in a genuine way, in a way that is not trying to trick them or anything like that. But if you don't get their attention, you've got a problem, because it's harder and harder to get people's attention.
No, it is. And being that standout, doing something out of the norm, is definitely a way to grab attention. And I love that people bought it because they didn't want to like it. Because like your response to that still is, well, thank you for buying it. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
at least you're not
yeah.
talking shit on it and not buying
Yeah,
it. Like,
and honestly, it's even a better story. Oh man, I noticed that. I never seen that before. I tried it because I thought it would be terrible, and then they like it, and so like you converted somebody, and that's to this day I'd say the number one cigar I hear that like what was the cigar that got you into Aganorsa. More often than not, I hear not from the hardcore guys. The hardcore guys they were there with Casa Fernandez and all that stuff, but uh, for people that have learned of us more recently or newer to cigars, a lot of times it's Supreme Leaf, which is funny because it's a limited edition. It comes out once or twice a year in limited quantities and it's gone. But that cigar turned a lot of people on to the brand.
yeah, and again, it revitalizes the brand when you kind of change thing up like that too. Like people think it's new. And I'm sure some people maybe smoked an Aganorsa before that didn't even pay attention to the fact that they were smoking an Aganorsa before. And then they saw the new color scheme. They're like, oh, why does that name sound familiar? And
Yeah,
then it just
it
opens
was
them
very
up.
traditional looking, and the company name at the time, Casa Fernandez. There's a lot of Casas, a lot of Fernandezes. It was a very traditional look to the packaging. It just didn't really resonate with people. They would say they think it was AJ because it says Fernandez,
Mhm.
or they wouldn't remember it, or it was just another cigar on the shelf to them. It didn't catch their attention. And then you come out with something that really, you know, has almost a shock value to it. And it was all thought out. I mean, the color scheme and everything. It wasn't like it was just thrown at the wall. I mean, to Brian's credit, he had a reason why he used those colors and did it the way he did, and it for sure it worked. And I think that was why.
By the way, guys, I just looked because I had a hunch that maybe there was still some of the Robustos. If you go to Smokin's website right now, you can still buy not boxes, but you can still buy the 5 packs of the Rare Fusion Robustos. So if you've not had the ability to try the Rare Fusions, go to Smokin right now and buy them all up because they're absolutely, and when they're gone, they're gone. So I don't think there's another size coming out in the future, and I doubt Terrence would even tell us if there was. But Terrence, is there?
No comment.
Yeah, that's what I
But we
thought.
but we never but we never repeat on the thing. So those robustos, that's the last time you'll get a chance to smoke those for sure.
So jump on Smoking, everybody. If you've not had the ability to try the Rare Leaf yet, the Rare Fusion, go on and do yourself a favor and pick it up from Smoking right now. Um, one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, and I think I lost my train of thought. You had mentioned? Oh my gosh, shit. All right, I'll move on to the next question and we'll come back to this one. One thing that I've always wondered, since you've got a ton of experience with Nicaraguan tobacco, a ton of experience. You've got a ton of experience with tobacco in general. What is a belief about Nicaraguan tobacco that you quietly disagree with, even if you hear it from people that you respect in the industry? You don't have to give names. I'm not asking for those. I'm just saying what's something you hear, and then the second part to that question is what's something you hear from the consumer that you're hard pressed to kind of correct sometimes.
I'd say I would say this is true, but it's kind of applied to everything too much. Is that Nicaraguan cigars are strong, which they certainly are, and they certainly can be. Um, but there's mild Nicaraguan cigars. You'll hear people be like, "Oh, I like Dominicans because they're milder," and that might be true on a pound for pound basis, but I don't think that, if you've ever had a Florida Dominicana, a double arrow,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a mild cigar. That's stronger than a lot of stuff in Nicaragua. I think anything, the stereotypes of anything are kind of painted with too broad a brush, and so now again, sometimes they'll be like, I like Nicaraguan cigars because they're stronger. So then you try not to correct that one too much, but you do
Well,
hear
I
people.
would say I would say they're stronger is more of a truthful statement, then DR cigars are stronger than Nicaraguan cigars.
Yeah, again, the difference though with that is a little bit is that Nicaraguan cigars tend to more be binder filler wise Nicaragua, maybe a Nicaraguan wrapper, or like Ecuador, Habano, or Connecticut, or something like that. They're a little bit more consistent in terms of 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 the country. So I think when you say Nicaraguan cigar, like there's kind of like, if it's kind of like saying bourbon, where there's all different types of bourbon, but you know what you're getting into with bourbon.
Yeah, no, I
Whereas
agree.
Dominican Republic is more like just whiskey in general. Where
Correct.
I mean, if you look at like Davidoff, Fuente, and La Flor, those are three totally different cigars. And Dominican Republic, also you have to keep in mind, was always kind of more of a manufacturing country than it was a place. I mean, Nicaragua has more cigars that are either 100% Nicaragua or almost 100% Nicaragua.
Yes.
Dominican has a lot of combos of Dominican binder, Nicaraguan filler, Honduran filler, Ecuador wrapper. You get a lot more of a mix, where Dominican tobacco tends to be used more as a blending agent, not the main. I mean, there's obviously exceptions to that, Opus and things like that, but Nicaraguan cigars tend to be more dominant of Nicaraguan tobacco than I would say Dominican cigars are dominant as an industry of Dominican tobacco. I mean, Ernesto Carrillo won a cigar of the year with the cigar made in Dominican Republic of 100% Nicaraguan tobacco. So you just don't see stuff like that in Nicaragua, where Nicaragua would have a Nicaraguan factory would have a cigar made entirely of non-Nicaraguan tobacco. It just it's not. I've never heard of that. So that comparison to me becomes less meaningful because of that. You just don't have the commonality of apples to apples.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I do think some of the strongest cigars that are made are for sure using Nicaraguan tobacco. But I also feel Nicaraguan cigars could be made delicately, smoothly.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Is that like,
you get the full spectrum out of Nicaraguan.
If you're going on, the average or something, for sure. But you don't want to write off any. People do this all the time with everything. They say, "Oh, I don't like Connecticut cigars. I don't like Olor tobacco. Oh, I don't. Nicaraguan cigars are too strong. Dominican cigars aren't strong enough." Though I feel that those stereotypes overall, I mean, they're useful guidelines, but they're not something that you should live your life by, because in many cases they're not true.
No, I would absolutely agree with you on that. I think a lot of that stigma too.
Sure.
Is the volcanic soil of Nicaragua just makes everything hurt type deal. And they just don't. But I also think maybe, there's a perfect question for you. All your years in this industry, do you think you have more hardcore, dedicated cigar smokers today? Or do you think it actually just looks that way because of social media? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, So I don't know if there's more. Well, I would say, I mean, I guess it depends how far you want to go back. If you're going back 30 years,
we'll say
sure,
no.
More.
We'll say since 2008, since you
so since I've been in the business, I would say probably there's more hardcore. I would say more. But
by the way, everyone, real quick before you answer, I'm considering hardcore as 1 to 2 cigars a week, because an average cigar smoker is about once a month. So I think that's a fair.
So I'd say there's more. Certainly post COVID, I would say there's more.
Yes.
I think what social media did more is it made that group much louder than it had previously been. If you go on a chat group and you go, what's the best size of a cigar? Like Lancero will be top 3, sometimes number 1. And Lancero
lowest
is
selling cigar out there.
Lowest selling cigar you could possibly make,
That should be.
I love them. I mean, but I got, I have a fiduciary responsibility to come out with products that will sell.
I know.
And so you can't come out with a bunch of stuff that is not really what the market overall is asking for. Now, again, there's a place for these things, and you get. I always say that there's kind of three levels of cigar smokers, and you kind of want to, what I say, ride the wave. And you start off with the hardcore guys. The hardcore guys are going to generate passion for your brand. They're gonna spread the word. They're gonna tell other people about how good they are. You really need that in the beginning. It gives you like a nice bump, a nice wave. It gives you momentum. But those guys also, they always want to try something new. They're always looking to try different cigars, and those people, even when they're dedicated only to your brand, which is rare, they smoke a different. It's rare they smoke the same cigar from you twice in a row. Like if the Toro Rare Leaf Maduro, and the next one will be Validation Habano Robusto, and the next one will be the Lancero Aniversario, and the next one will be. So they bounce around a lot, and as time goes on, as you grow, you need people that kind of buy your product consistently, the same cigar every day, day in and day out, because otherwise it gets hard for a retailer. He wants to put stuff on the shelf, and he doesn't want to be like, well, the first time it sold in a week, the second time it sold in a month, third time it sold in 6 months, and then it stopped selling because you never got past that kind of initial group that's always looking to try something new. You've got to get into that next group, which are people that tend to have 4 or 5 go-tos. They'll try other things. That 4 or 5 group will mix up a little bit. But if you're in that group, they smoke you pretty consistently over time, and they don't change. And that's the next group, and they're great because they're also more into cigars than the average person. They're maybe not on social media. They're maybe not knowledgeable about the companies themselves, but they know they like different brands, and they stick to those brands. And then you have people that smoke on the golf course in the summertime, and it's almost always the same cigar. Every Christmas, they go buy a box of the same cigar every year. Or they've been smoking, since the 80s or whatever, and they just smoke their Ashton, Connecticut White Churchill. That cigar is the most loyal consumer base I've ever seen. If you smoke an Ashton White Label Churchill, those guys, they won't smoke another size. They won't smoke another brand. They just like that Churchill, and they'll smoke it that group is the hardest group to get into, and many will never even reach it. But you have to at least get somewhat deep into that second group if you want to be successful long term. It's very hard unless you're very small and you're happy being small to get out of that first group.
To get into that, oh my gosh, the cigar you just literally said, the church,
Ashton,
the Ashton,
Connecticut.
the Ashton.
Yeah.
Why is that hard? Is that hard to get into because these are guys that literally won't try anything else? Like, what makes that group hard?
Yeah, they won't try anything else, and usually those guys. I'll use another company as an example. Like, so, and this is true all over the place, but especially in Miami, is that, like, if you take Padron, like their fathers or grandfathers bought Padron in the 70s in the bodegas, and so they remember their dad or their granddad smoked it, and then when they got a little bit older, they had one with their dad, and so it's very hard to that's just time.
You're fighting memory.
Yeah, you're fighting memories, and for those people, they're not interested in changing. Generationally, they're also different in that those people, they just found something they like and they stuck to it. Like, if you look at my father, when he had a drink, it was almost always the same drink. It was he wasn't like, oh, let's try it with this bourbon, or like he liked his Manhattan, he liked it with a certain and that was that. He didn't mix it up. He wasn't interested in mixing it up. And so that combination of, you're fighting against memories and you're fighting against a mentality that was, I find what I like and that's what I like, and I'm not interested in anything else. That's very hard to break. And the only way to get into it is to be around long enough. If you look at those companies that have customers like that, those cigars have been around in many cases 50 years, 60 years. That's a long time. And so it's hard to break into that. And really, that's something that you really kind of just do organically over time. You almost never get in there through like direct effort.
What's one of your most memorable win stories with a client with a consumer, where it was kind of, you accepted the challenge and you worked at them, and say you always ran into them in a shop and you finally turned them over. Like, do you have a story like that where you worked on, say, a guy that was always at your events, or you'd always see at a shop that you're like, I'm going to get you one of these days to smoke an Aganorsa?
The two hardest guys to always try to get onto anything are guys that say they only smoke Cubans, and
Which is usually a lie.
and then and then and then there's three companies that are very hard to ever like convert off of, and that's Davidoff, Fuente, and Padron. And so this guy, all he literally smoked was Opus X. I mean, he just had tons of it, and we were doing an Aganorsa experience. And he almost didn't want to do it. I'm like, hey, listen, you're going to try some tobaccos, and we sell Fuente some tobacco as well. I was like, who knows? Maybe you've tried our tobacco before. We don't know where they use it, and for sure. But like, he was a huge Fuente guy, and so he did it, and really enjoyed the seminar. And then he put in Aganorsa into his rotation, and so he smoked two cigars. He smoked Opus X and he smoked Aganorsa, and so that was a cool win, because that's the type of person that is very
Loyal.
very very hard. Even if you can get them to try yours or whatever, they almost go right back to what they were smoking before. So it was a cool thing to get a guy to do that.
But out of 10 of those types of guys, if you can reach half of them, you now have an immense loyalty of a person, because those people are loyal to their specific brands.
That guy, he actually ended up stopping smoking a couple of years ago. But there was a store that literally carried our product because of him, because he bought so much. It was like he was like the only customer. But it was like this. They just didn't have a huge following for us in the store. But this one guy would buy so much of it that he carried a good amount of ours, because this gentleman would buy 6 boxes off him at a time. So it was
that's got to make you feel great going through that, going like, we converted a dedicated brand smoker to our brand, even just half the time.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's both reassuring and scary in a way, because it just shows you how important one consumer can be. I mean, a lot of times you're on that shelf because there's a guy that comes in and always buys your cigar, and maybe nobody else does, but he's coming in every day, every other day, and he buys yours. If he smokes your cigar, 365 days a year, or that's a lot of boxes of cigars that move.
It is.
So that's kind of scary in a way. The guy moves, or he doesn't, he stops smoking, or just changes his brand for whatever reason. That's a huge loss for you. But if you can gain one, and it can be a huge gain. So it's both reassuring and kind of terrifying.
And at the same time, to add to that, that shows a good shop owner, because everybody knows the shop owner that goes, well, I only carry what I like to smoke as well. That's a shop owner that literally curtails to their clientele. I've got 5 people that buy your brand, but they buy so much of it, I keep it on stock. Like, that's somebody that knows their clientele very well.
Yeah, I think it's just it's good business. You want to sell what people. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't smoke 80 plus ring gauges that much, but there's a market for it. They love it. We try to give them the best product we can. And I've even learned from being here that, like, you can really make flavorful big ring gauge cigars if you blend it the size, if you make an effort to make it a great cigar instead of just packing it with extra Seco or whatever. You can have a great tasting smoke. And so I've learned that. But that's not. I mean, I'm not making cigars for me. We're making cigars
Correct.
for our consumers. And so
yes,
yeah. I mean, you don't want to do stuff that you hate, obviously, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're catering to your clientele. If you're not listening to your consumers, you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, and it's hard to have a shop that only smoke. I'm not mentioning any names, Terrence. You probably are going to know exactly the shop I'm talking about. There's a shop here in Colorado Springs that a lot of reps absolutely just can't stand. It's on the north end of it's in the middle of the Springs. And it's because he carries only CA Top 20. And he thinks it's the greatest thing in the world.
I mean, at the end of the day, like the reason people have a business is that it's our job ultimately to convince people to carry our product.
Correct.
We're not entitled to be in anybody's humidor.
Correct.
So you've got to show them why you deserve a spot there, and sometimes you can't. You for whatever reason you can't do that, and you just leave. You wait to the future. Maybe there'll be a time in the future. Again, a great story always is Dave Garofalo from Two Guys Cigars when I was at Casada. He did not carry Casada, and he wouldn't carry it, but I'd always go visit him when I had the opportunity. He was always very nice with me. I do respect him, and I when I came to Aganorsa, you opened the door right away for me, and he's been a great partner to us. It's one of a very rewarding relationship for me because it's brought a lot of consumers to us through his audience, and that had I've been like, well, this guy owes me or something. Like, he doesn't owe me anything. He was always very kind to me when he saw me. He didn't buy, but then years went by, and then he decided that he wanted to, and then it's been great ever since. So you have to be patient, and you have to earn that right, and it may or may not happen, but you can't take the opinion that like, oh, they're stupid if they don't have our brand in the humidor. It's their humidor to run, and it's for us to show them why it's important to have us be a part of it.
Yeah, and when you left Casada in 17 and came over to Aganorsa, somebody like the shops that you was it kind of like, oh, you're here now? Yes, I'll take your product, or was it like a restart?
No, I mean, I would say I was very blessed that I had a lot of people that were willing to work with me because they'd worked with me in the past, and
Hmm.
they enjoyed it enough that they wanted to give me another shot. Um, in some cases, it was that they had always liked the product, but they didn't feel it had been promoted well, so they didn't carry it. Now that I was there, that they felt that would change. In some cases, it was just um, they did like the product, but they had never heard from anybody before, and they might not even known me that well. So there was all sorts of different scenarios that I encountered, and again, you just look at each one and you say, okay, what does this person care about? Some guys are more interested in the blends and liking the blends. That's and if they are, you take more of an approach towards that. You do the fumas with them. You explain why Aganorsa is special and has a signature flavor. You focus more on that. Other stores are more, listen, this is a business. I love your cigars, but that's not the reason they're going to be on my shelf. They're going to be on the shelf because they're going to sell. Well, then you will focus on the ways that it can sell or will sell, and you take that approach. So at the end of the day, like we're the ones that have to listen and determine whether we can do what they're looking for.
I'm gonna try to break your humble streak here because I don't think you admit to this a lot, but I'm gonna see if you will.
Okay.
What would Aganorsa look like today without you if you didn't join in 17? Let me preface the question. Would they be what they are today? And I'm not saying that somebody else maybe couldn't have stepped in, and I'm just going to answer that for you because I know your first thing you're going to say is, I don't think I've done anything else anybody else can. But that may be true, but you've done what you've done. And do you think Aganorsa would be where it would be if they didn't hire somebody like you and continued to play the game the way they were?
You took away my first answer. So
I know I did.
I don't think that if they didn't hire anybody, I don't think so. And the reason for that is they were missing something that I could help with. So, but had they been missing other things and they had hired me, it wouldn't have worked. It was a
That's
perfect
fair.
storm.
That's fair.
Basically, they had an excellent product. They had a product that was very well respected in the business by retailers.
Yep.
I was saying before, I'd hear the same thing over and over again. You'd hear, you guys make incredible blends. You're making great blends for other people. Your own cigars just people don't recognize them. They're confused by the name. They haven't heard of them. And there's just no brand awareness for the cigars, and they just sit in the humidor. And again, there was like JFR has been successful long before I ever showed up. It wasn't a company that was dying or anything. It was doing fairly consistently and fairly well. It just could do better based on the resources that it had.
Sure.
And I could help with what they were lacking. So yeah, if they didn't hire anybody and it just kept going the way it was, no, I don't think it would have gone as well as it has. But that was also, and by the way, it wasn't just me. I brought on salespeople. We've brought on Fabian Ziegler over the last couple of years. There's all sorts of people
Massive.
that were brought in that have to, my position is very much, it's kind of like the quarterback, where when you win, they go, the quarterback's a genius. And when you lose, they go, the quarterback sucks. So you get more blame or credit than you deserve, because a lot of people have to do something right. And it's a lot of people in order for this to all work. And so to say that it's one person is ridiculous. I mean, I'm not making the cigars. I'm not growing the tobacco. I'm not shipping it in the warehouse. I'm not the one doing the vast majority of the sales that we do. So there's all these people that we have, whether our reps, our factory workers, our warehouse workers. All these people are crucial to it going well. And if they don't do a good job, it's not going to work. And so you don't ever want to be like, oh, this one person is the cause of everything.
And that was a very humble way of giving the answer, I think.
I think it's true. I mean, I'm not saying it.
No.
I think it's a true statement.
I think it's a very true statement, but at the same time, I think you are maybe a little less risk averse than potentially others because of your background. You were younger when you came in. You've been in the industry a long time. You've seen a lot of fuck ups. You've seen a lot of success. You've seen what isn't work, doesn't work. So you brought a lot of your own thumbprint that you put on Aganorsa too. And the whole khakis, the whole there's a lot around you as a figure within the industry that I think you've played into and kind of owned and just been like, yeah, let's just go for it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, you again, you try to take the attributes that you have that appeal to people and utilize them to the best of your ability. I try to do that as well as I can. And at the end of the day, like I said, I still feel that the most important thing is our leaf is our strength. The more people we can get into their hand, what I'm always thrilled about is when I go to a store and they're buying Aganorsa and they've never even heard of me. They don't know who I am. They're like,
that
oh no,
blows my mind.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's really what you want. You want them to be going in there and buying the product. And I mean, that's real success, to be honest with you, is that when they don't need to know or care who I am, and are enjoying the product. And let me be clear, I'm very appreciative that we do have a lot of people that certainly have been turned on to the brand and are supportive of me and the fact that I'm there. That means a tremendous amount to me. But the goal is to go beyond that, obviously, totally. And to get it and to get into people's hands that are just not interested in whether I wear khakis or flex or say validation or anything like that,
or put your shopping cart away, which I will commend you. You walked like a mile or so to put a shopping cart away.
To be clear on the shopping cart thing, is like this is where things get mixed out. This is where they try to like pin you down and with straw man arguments. The shopping cart thing is that when I was a kid, I would go to a grocery store and one human being would ring up the whole order. Another human being would pack all the groceries into bags and then take it out to your car and load your car for you. I remember my father at Publix trying to tip the guy, and the guy was like, "Oh no, this is my job. Like I do this." And now they have you convinced that if you don't do all this for them, you're not only a bad customer, you're a bad human being, and society is going to collapse because of you. Like that's absurd. Like it's like the groceries aren't cheaper because you're doing all this stuff. They don't give you a discount. Like, so
you ring up your groceries now.
Don't leave the cart in the middle of the parking lot. Don't leave it like where it's banging into somebody's car and it's going to dent their car. Don't be a jerk. But if you're not taking that cart all the way back in the store when you got two kids or something with you, like to me, it's hard to say that person is the reason society is going down.
It's just produced a lot of fun content between you and Lauren. Yeah. That's all. We've loved all of it. So, I wanted so when you first started Casada in 2008, you moved down there for about 6 months, right? And then you
Yeah.
came back to Miami. So when you first moved from loving cigars to working in cigars, what was one assumption that your uncle's operation in the DR just completely shattered for you?
So I had spent a summer there once before, so I had seen that. But I would say that the big thing that you take away from a cigar factory, and really any cigar factory that's halfway decently run, is how much effort goes into the whole process. And it's so intensive, labor intensive. You have everything is done basically by hand, and how many things can get screwed up. It's really an art form in that way, and that's why I think when people come in this business and they take it from a pure business perspective, and again, being a business person is great. That I don't think you can be super successful in this business without having some sort of business acumen. But
Totally.
but when you try to really run it the way you'd run like a nuts and bolts company or something like that, like where it's approve efficiencies and manage inventory, and then we're gonna be successful. It just doesn't work that way. It's much more art um, than it is science, and I think that the companies that have understood that are the most successful companies. And a lot of these companies do things that would hardly be considered, I don't know, profitable necessarily to do, but those are the things that really generate the love and support and the passion for the product that carries it when you're not doing those type of things. So that was probably what I learned the most.
So here on another retrospective question, because you're always very honest here. If you had to write a failure resume for your cigar career, what
Yeah.
would the top line item be? And what habit did you build to make sure that that never happens again? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I would say, this. So this is not going to sound humble, but you have to let me finish. Is
Yes.
that I don't have a ton. I don't have very many things I would say that I've done that I failed at in the business, and but I'd say that that's the problem. I think if you look at really successful people and the people that have reached the top level of any industry are people that failed a lot. They tried
Mm-hmm.
things and they just failed and they got back up. And again, I always look at, like, I think Fuente is an incredible company this way. If you look at the first like 60 years of Fuente, it was just one problem after the next. I mean, fire burns down the place in Tampa. Fire burns down the place they had in Nicaragua. One trial after the next, one failure after the next of different things that happen. And they're probably the biggest, most successful, uh, most brand awareness, the most dedicated consumer base, certainly arguably in the business.
The
And
Coca
I don't
Cola
think,
equivalent to the cigar world.
yeah, I don't think you get there without a lot of failure, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
mistakes, a lot of things that didn't go right. And I think I've been a little too risk averse, and that's something I've tried to get better at. Also, it would have been better to do it when you're younger. It's easier to screw up. You have less people depending on you, and so you kind of just dust yourself off. You keep going. As you get older, you have more people that you could potentially hurt if you screw up, and that kind of puts more limits on what you should probably rationally do. But that is something that take more chances and try things more. And if they don't work out, you dust yourself off. And I think in the industry, that's it's a little bit of a problem because we all know each other so well. So if you're in a bigger industry, you fail, and not as many people either see it or notice. But in this industry, you fall on your face, people see that. And
Yeah.
nobody wants to, go into the room where they know everybody. It's their friends or their, people that the industry peers, and everyone knows that you screwed up or you messed up. And so I think that's a general problem in this business. But certainly, it's something that I've tried to get better at.
So, was the most painful piece of feedback that you've ever received when you first started at Aganorsa? Was it the whole people just don't understand the brand? It's not consistent, or what
Yeah,
was what was a
it was very
different
hard.
painful piece?
They didn't even know about it at all. They had never heard of it. They might have heard of JFR, or they really just didn't. Or they might have heard of brands we made, like they might have heard of Illusion. They might have heard of Viaje or Warped or somebody like that, but they hadn't heard of us. That was a big part of it. There was really no brand recognition.
That was the biggest pain point for Aganorsa pre-you.
That was definitely the biggest in brand confusion, which was
Correct.
with that. If they were like, so, and it did. It took 10 minutes to explain the company. It was like, Casa Fernandez, and then there's the factory called Tampa, and the growing company's called Aganorsa, and the distribution company's called Tropical Tobacco, and and then you have, and it took you like 10 minutes to explain the company. It was like, I was confused. So it was like, what makes it special? It's the leaf. Let's call everything. It's the distribution is Aganorsa Leaf. The factory is Aganorsa Leaf. The farms are Aganorsa Leaf. Everything's Aganorsa Leaf. And that put the focus on what was actually special about our company, which is the signature flavor of the tobacco, that we have a flavor that nobody else has. And I think that's really, for whatever mistakes we make or problems we have, that has really sustained us, is that you can't get what we provide anywhere else. Again, you might, and if it's not for you, I always say we're like a bourbon bar. We have all different types. If you don't like bourbon, you want gin or vodka, you got to go somewhere else. We're the wrong bar. But so we're not for everybody necessarily. But if you like us, you're not going to get that flavor anywhere else.
Why do you think there was that convolution of understanding the brand pre-you? Was it just because the people that were in charge at the time just didn't understand how to operate multiple different lines or make a congruent story? Like, what do you think that was?
I think part of it was that remember, Eduardo liked the growing side. I think if he could do it again, he might have just stuck to that. Like he likes the farms, he likes that side of it. Everything else kind of came about later. Like people wanted him to make cigars for him with his tobacco, so it
was an afterthought. Making cigars was more of an afterthought.
Yeah, and making cigars for himself really was an afterthought. That was a nice, I guess, we had the JFR brand, and that was popular, but there wasn't a lot of like.
By the way, those of you that don't know, JFR stands for just for retail.
Yeah, and that brand was and is very popular. Like I said, I can take no credit for JFR's success. It was something that Paul Palmer developed long before I was ever there. But there was, the company had large swaths of the country where had no rep. And when things came out, they were like, oh, let's just do this or do that. And I don't think that they necessarily had a grand strategy or anything like that. And to their credit, they realized that, and that's why they hired me, is to bring that part to it. But that was really what was missing, is that there wasn't really a strategy or a plan put in place to build that brand recognition and that brand passion that's crucial to success for your own product.
Yeah, and I think bringing you in, you definitely filled in the gaps. And over the last couple of years, if you're new to cigars watching the show, they've been a complete rebranding over the last couple of years, bringing everything in as far as the La Valedición, the new packaging and stuff like that. That's a huge undertaking that you've done in the last, 3 years?
Yeah, no, for sure. That was a big thing, and really getting the arm on everything. If you think about it, like think of the miracles that take place. The person walks into the store. There's a gazillion cigars on the shelf. The odds he walks away with your cigar, of all the cigars in there, the odds are bad, and especially if he hasn't heard of it already. So the odds of then he smokes it, and he really enjoys it, and he wants to buy more. Now you've had another minor miracle, because who knows if he would have liked it or not. He could have been the wrong person or something like that. So now you got the right person who has tried your brand. He goes back in the shop. I really had a cigar I really enjoyed last time I was here. Well, which one was it? I don't know. It had something Casa on the band or something. I don't know. And then they go and they buy whatever because they can't remember. So you've lost them. So you have to have stuff that kind of, the arm was basically like, it's the one with the arm on it. At least now you know where to take you in the humidor. It narrows it down. So you have to have that. If you don't have that, you've got a real problem. Because the best cigar they can't remember smoking is one they never buy again. That was really an important thing to make sure that if they tried it and they liked it, that they had some capacity to do so again.
Yeah, and you've done really well at bringing in what I would call myself as being one of those cigar nerds to the brand, and new consumers to the brand. And I'd like to think that, with your partnership with Abe, I've seen a lot of new cigar smokers come out of smoking fans of Aganorsa.
Yeah, Abe's
Um,
another great example. I mean, Abe, I had a great relationship with him at Casada. We built that up a, a ton when I was there, and then I joined Aganorsa, and he worked with me to do the same. And in fact, on a greater level, I mean, we've been even more successful working together. This time around, and it was very successful the last time. So he's been a great partner, and he's somebody I really enjoy working with.
what's something that you find cigar nerds like myself, like anybody watching the show, systematically overvalues in cigars? And the opposite of that is, what do you think that casual smokers systematically undervalue when they talk about quote unquote great cigars? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the irony, which is what we're all going for, which is super important to success, and you can't is brand recognition. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a ton of people out there that buy cigars because they've heard of the name, and that's why. And it could be a totally the wrong cigar for them,
Correct.
like, but they've heard of it, and so that actually is a little bit overvalued in terms of making a decision, which is funny because that's what everyone want. You want people to go in there and be like, oh, Aganorsa, I've heard that, it's good, and buy it. But like, that's not necessarily for a consumer the best way to walk into a store. I mean, if they've never had a cigar before and they go, oh, XYZ brand, I heard that's really good, and then they try it and it's way too strong for them. That's oh, maybe I don't like cigars. I mean, this is supposed to be great, and I didn't like it for
Right.
so
That's the
so that,
worst.
that can be overvalued. And then I think what's undervalued is personal taste. Or I think so many people, when you talk to them, they'll always say, well, I'm not an expert. They'll qualify their own taste. They'll say like,
Hmm.
well, what do you like? Well, I'm not an expert. They're like, well, you're an expert on what you like. You know what you like, right? Oh yeah, yeah, okay, well, that's what matters. So I think, and that's something I feel that gives us an advantage. That's why we do these fuma tastings, so people understand their palates better. The more confidence I feel that they have in their own taste, the more likely they are to choose us over somebody else, because we don't have as much brand recognition as other companies, and so we can't compete with them necessarily in that regard. But if we can get them to trust their palate more, we can maybe win them over that way.
No, and that's why one of the things I stopped about doing cigar reviews, because people would come up to me and go, "Oh, I didn't taste this. I didn't taste that." My first question to them is, "How often do you smoke?" And they're like, "Oh, a couple times a year." And I look at them, I'm like, "Listen, if I gave you a glass of bourbon and I asked you, and you don't drink bourbon but a couple times a year, and I asked you to pick out vanilla, oak, what's heavier?" You'd
Yeah,
go, "I just feel burn." So the
yeah,
better question I always told people is, doesn't matter my opinion. Did you like it? If you did, then smoke it. Like it
yeah,
shouldn't
yeah. That's it.
matter what
That's all. Yeah, yeah,
anybody
yeah.
else's opinion says.
Absolutely. And again, that doesn't mean not to. I mean, what you do is you find out, certain people like have similar palates to yours, and
Correct.
like they
Yes.
might say, Ryan, whenever Ryan likes a cigar, I tend to like that cigar. So that's fine as long as they match. So find somebody that you trust, that who has more experience, that whose palate tends to match yours. There's nothing wrong with taking advice. In fact, it's a great way to learn. But
Correct.
but at the end of the day, like you said, it's whether you like it or not whether anyone else does.
Yeah, and to your point about people with specific brands, is I do feel that the the couple time a year cigar guy does go off of lists, and sometimes can get burned from that because they're like, "Oh, this is the number one cigar," or this, and then they're like, "Well, I didn't like it," and I think that could hurt them. So I always try to tell people, if you are going to go off of somebody's flavor profile in their list, understand what that flavor profile is, smoke several of their cigars off of their list, determine if you even match that profile. Like you said, there's going to be certain people out there, like maybe Cooper's list matches better with somebody over here, and Cigar Snob's list matches better. And I just my biggest pet peeve with people when they're picking out new cigars is they often go too much on influence versus Did you like it? Well, I
Yeah.
liked it, but I don't know if I liked it enough because this person liked it a whole lot and I sort of liked it. Doesn't matter. Does that make sense what I'm getting at?
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree.
I think too much priority is put on lists when flavor profile with cigars is entirely subjective. I still smoke bundle cigars that my friends would never touch. I smoke them because I like them. I don't have
Yeah,
to
and
think
and
about
and
it.
by the way, there's different. I mean,
Aganorsa
you're
makes a
more.
fantastic bundle cigar, by the way.
Yeah, but you're mowing the lawn, and a new Cuba is a great cigar.
Yeah, it's
If
fantastic.
you don't want to, you go to the beach, you drink, a light beer or something like that. You're not drinking, high end stouts or something. That and you could love stouts, but that's really not a great place to enjoy one. So you just find the right cigar for the right moment and enjoy trying different things and find out what you like.
How do you convince people that price doesn't mean good? And I asked the question, this is a question I meant to ask earlier that I lost my train of thought. So let me say the whole thing. You had brought up, and I love the fact that you guys have not become the land of 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 cigars. I feel like the last several PCAs have been the $100 cigar PCAs. I love the fact that you guys really know your consumers. How do you convince somebody that price does not denote quality in the sense of
Well, I
most
mean, you can
people don't
you
understand why $100 cigar is good.
But I mean, you can talk about, like, in our case, like, oh, we're vertically integrated, so we're able to do, not everybody can do what we do. If you don't have farms and factory, obviously that it makes it harder to come in at a lower price point. So that's something that we have the ability to do, that not everyone does. So you can knock down the personal level. In terms of convince, it's hard to convince anybody of anything. If somebody believes that something is only good if it's expensive, you can't really do much with that. I mean, that's why we kind of have, like, for instance, our anniversarial line. Our anniversarial line's like, before state taxes and stuff, somewhere between like $12 to $17. That's not inexpensive necessarily, but it's certainly not as expensive as a lot of stuff that's out there. But it's also packaged in a way that it'd be reflective of something. So I think that
Correct.
helps too. Like, if the guy's smoking stuff that's over $20, it's very hard to convince him to smoke a JFR. They just don't like, it doesn't look like
But
something
why?
that
Why
reflects,
do you think there
because it
is it
doesn't.
a mental block?
I think it just reflect. I think part of it is that there's a belief, a price has to do with quality, but there's also a belief that, like, when people buy stuff, it reflects how they feel about themselves. And if it's like,
Okay.
if this,
Okay.
if this cigar doesn't look in a way that reflects, who. Also, remember, it's like cigars and somebody are like watches in the sense, like
Yes.
a watch. The function of a watch is to tell time, right? I mean, the pure function. Like, you could get uh, a plastic watch to do that. You can use your phone.
Casio.
You don't need a watch at all. Or why would you buy a Rolex, or why would you buy, a high end Movado or a high end watch, if that's all it does? Well, that's not all it does. It's saying something about you, and so
Mhm.
people, I think, want to make sure that what they're whether it's what they wear, what they drive, or what they smoke, want to make sure that that reflects how they feel about themselves, and that's a very hard thing to change. So what you can basically do is you can work within what they believe, and you'll either be able to work within that framework or not. But it's very hard to convince anybody of anything.
No, it really is. It's hard to convince brand. It's hard to convince label smokers that something less expensive than what they smoke on a regular is just as good.
Unless they're willing, like, the money gets a little tighter, they
Yeah.
start to, it starts, oh, this is just as good, like, uh, so it's one of these things but they're talking themselves into it. You're not convincing them. You're either going to give them an argument that they're willing to accept or not willing to accept, but you're not going to change their mind. They're going to change their own mind.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I want to kind of ask you some early cigar life questions here that I don't think you've been asked on other shows. Um, you talked about in a YouTube clip, you talked about how you how did the summer working for your Uncle Manuel at his factory in the Dominican. How did you know going down there in 2008 when you lived there for that 6 months? Did you know that that was going to change the trajectory of your life? Like, when did you first think cigars are going to be my career?
No, so when I moved down there, it was going to be my career. That
Oh,
was
so that was when
yeah,
you made that wasn't there just for shits and giggles, a
yeah.
summer
No, that
thing.
no. There was this. I did do it for a summer years before, and like several years before when I was younger, I spent the summer, and that was more for fun. When I went down the second time and I lived there for 6 months, that was I was committing to work in the business, at least for the as long as it worked out. But
Sure.
that was definitely I was going down there with the objective of this is what I'm going to be doing.
Were you going down there with the objective of I'm going to run this bitch someday? Or were you going down there with I'm just going to dip my toes in it and see where it goes?
I mean, well, moving down there was more than dipping your toe in, but I mean, I don't think that
Correct, correct.
I ever felt so far about it where like this is for better or worse. I mean, this might be another thing. Is I have never looked that far ahead in some ways. I kind of, you try to do the best you can with what you have at this time, and you see where it leads. And so I think sometimes you're thinking about the next thing you're going to be doing, and you don't do the thing you're currently doing that well, and you never get there. So I always focus on doing whatever I'm doing as well as I can, and that has led to other things, fortunately for me. But I never think about like, well, I'm doing this now so that I'm going to be doing this in X amount of time, which maybe is a bad thing. Maybe I should.
Well, again, like you talked about how you remembered very vividly about Sundays at your uncle's house, your uncle Manuel's, where everyone smoked except you, and you wanted to be included in that. So tell us the story. Why did you want to be included in that Sunday smoking
Well,
session?
I mean, everyone was, we were all eating, we were playing cards, we were, having a drink, and everyone was having a cigar. And so, you don't want to be left out. So you're like, oh, what the hell, so I would just smoke Fonseca Petite Vintage Bellicoso on Sundays. And that's how it started.
And that goes into my next question. Why did you feel that the Fonseca vintage was such a perfect cigar for you?
It was like 4 by 44 or something. It was a very small cigar.
Well, not a big
And
commitment.
yeah, and it was a very mild cigar. And so
Yep.
it was a great starter cigar for me. In fact, for a long time, that was all I smoked. I just smoked those, and there was nothing else. And then after probably at least a year of those before I ever really tried any other cigar. So that was just how I got started. It was a light cigar. It was flavorful, and everyone was having a good time, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Now, part of those Sundays is when your uncle finally invited you to that Miami dinner. What made you say yes to working for the family full time?
You
And
know,
for those of you that don't know, explain that family dinner, please.
No, it was, again, basically, after a couple of years had gone by, after I stayed down there, we sat down and he just talked and said, "Hey, listen, we don't have anyone in the States. It's a family business. We'd like it to be somebody in the family, and would you be interested in doing that?" And again, what I've always liked about this business, the best part of this business, the only reason to be in this business is I always liked the camaraderie and the experiences it generates, and the very uh the I'm not even sure I can put in the correct words here, but you're constantly in a place where you're having a good time, and where good times are meant to be had. And so I really liked that about it. And that's what I like about it today. There's easier ways to make a living, I can tell you that. But Juan Lopez from Gurkha
Gurkha, yeah.
he always says to me, he goes, Terence, if we did anything else, we'd be millionaires, but we wouldn't have had as much fun. But it's we wouldn't have had as much fun. It's been I've been very blessed. I've had a great time. Um, Being a part of the business, doing the events, that's always the best part. Being with the groups, being doing these interviews and things like that. That's the fun part, and that's what really appealed to me. And I had gotten a taste of that with my uncle, just at those lunches, and seeing like, oh man, this is what cigars about. It's having a good time, and the cigar being a conduit to a great conversation, a great experience.
When did you give in to the fact that you wanted to be in cigars? Because you didn't go to college for cigars. You didn't go to college for
No,
business.
no.
So what made you say, yes, I'm gonna give this my all?
Again, I think it was simply the fact that I enjoyed the environment. I enjoyed the environment. I enjoyed the culture of it. I enjoyed it's almost like it's an atavistic career. It's being it's a business that's, as I said, it's totally different than, it's so labor intensive. Things are not done in an efficient way. It's very it's more art than science, and I liked that aspect of it, and I felt that, just, I don't know if I could have just sold, nuts and bolts, or sold insurance or something like that. I don't know if I would have found that rewarding. And
Sure.
sales are sales to some degree, but whether it's enjoyable or not, I think has to do with the fact that in this business, you have a product that people are always interested in hearing in, for those who are interested, and leads to friendships, leads to memories, leads to a lot of stuff that, I mean, I don't know anyone that sells insurance that says, oh man, I wrote this insurance policy and it was just the best time I ever had. I mean, and maybe they're very, and again, I'm not knocking insurance. I mean,
I'm licensed. Nobody's
yeah,
ever said that.
yeah. And again, it's a very important thing to have insurance. So it provides a very essential,
But it's boring.
service. But yeah, it doesn't generate that type of experience,
Mm-mm.
at least as far as I'm aware. So that was what was attractive about it.
So looking back, what lesson did you take from the early DR period that guided you and still guides you today at Aganorsa?
uh I think it's a relationship business. I remember my uncle, when I first sat down with him in his office, when I was like finally totally in and everything like that in the Dominican, and he used to like to write upside down, and so you could read it, and he would be on the other side and he would write, he
That's a
wrote
talent.
he wrote, this is what this business is about, and he wrote relationships upside down, for so I could read it. And uh and and that's true. I mean, it's a relationship business. It's so much based on trust. It's based on having history, and having the bona fides from other people that vouch for you, and that is really what remains, even though it's changed as time goes on, and there's a more corporate aspect to the business now than there was even when I started. But still, that relationship aspect is so crucial. I think if you forget that, you're going to have a problem.
No, and I agree with you. I think, what is something? How did you win Aganorsa? Why did they ever tell you why they chose you?
I don't know how many other people there were in the running, to be honest with you.
Okay, so that was gonna be my
Uh,
next question.
uh,
How many other people were in the running for that?
I really don't know, to be honest. I've never even asked.
And were you
No,
approached or did you apply? Like, how does that work?
no. So I never thought I would have worked there. I mean, I knew of the company, but I had no relationships really there. I knew I had. Again, it's a small business. I knew people that were from there, but there was a guy that had worked with me at Casada. His name was Robert. Is Robert Morris, and he was a broker for us at Casada, and he and his son worked for us for several years, and he had retired. And his son had left the business as well, but he and his son had kind of come back to help Eduardo, because he had gone to high school with Eduardo, and he actually had worked with Eduardo in the early days when Eduardo had come into the business. And he had kind of come out of retirement to help Eduardo broker in the Virginias and the Carolinas of the country, and 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 he reached out to me and said, "Hey, listen, Eduardo is looking for somebody, and I think that you would be a good fit." And really, out of just respect for him, I took. I'm always a believer in, you never know where things are going to lead, and the worst thing is you lost an hour of your life or whatever with a conversation. So I said sure, and I ended up speaking to Eduardo and speaking to the people at the company, And the more I kind of learned, the more I was like, man, this company has a lot going on here that I could help with. And I felt it. I don't know if I would do this now, to be honest with you, but I was at a stage in my life where it was going to be building something, and I would have a lot of control of, of how it got built. And so that was very appealing to me, where I was very fortunate to have some offers from some other places, but in some cases, at least, it wasn't kind of the quarterback role. It was to do, and it would have been maybe something that would have led to that position, but it wasn't going to be what I was going to enter into. And it was with, companies that had kind of passed the phase where they needed help establishing themselves, really. And so I knew that if I didn't do it now, I probably wouldn't necessarily do it in the future. So I went with Aganorsa, and it worked out very well.
I'd say it worked out pretty damn well. You once referenced Aganorsa / Casa Fernandez as a sleeping giant when you joined. What were the first signs that the giant was starting to actually wake up? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say, there was a few things that have happened that really help. I can name certain things. When I first got in the dojo crowd, we did a dojo project. That was, I'd say, a moment that was important. It brought us a lot of attention with that group. Dave Garofalo, the Cigar Authority, gave us his #1 cigar of the year. That definitely helped. Doing projects with Abe has definitely helped. The rebrand, I'd say it went pretty fast. I mean, it went pretty fast. When the first year I was with the company, when I joined, before I joined, I said, I would say, like, I'll commit to 10-15% growth this year. We blew that out of the water. I mean, it was far more than I ever expected. So I was fortunate that, like, it started to change very quickly. And there were certainly moments that, like I just mentioned, that I feel were really helpful in that project. Supreme Leaf, for sure, was a huge moment. So there's definitely moments, but it started pretty quick.
Well, you mentioned metrics. So what metrics, beyond obviously pure revenue, do you watch most closely to gauge how Aganorsa is doing in the market?
The only thing I look at is passion for the product. That's the only metric of success. If you look at companies that have the most passion behind them, are the companies that I feel are the healthiest, the ones that are growing the most that are the most stable. Passion for the product is what you look for. Brand recognition and passion for the product, but you can't have passion for the product without the brand recognition. And but brand recognition is a stepping block to passion for the product.
Now, this as being you're a philosophy major. So this. Am I correct in that? Yes, I think I am.
Classics.
Classic. So this better than most. Most philosophers are never fully appreciated until about 50 years or so after they're gone. As far as, you take somebody like Ayn Rand, and, she was underappreciated, and in the last 20 years, she's blown up, or 30 years, she's blown up. Several others, Nietzsche and all of them, they were more or less underappreciated. 20 years after you're out of the business, when you're done and gone, how do you feel you're going to see your philosophy in the business live on?
I don't think that I kind of have two different silos in my life, and there's art and philosophy and that kind of stuff, and I have a very different take and view on those than I do on business, really. I think that the things that I try to implement are the things that most successful people are implementing, and I don't think it would be that different. I think making things, making it fun, making it exciting, being consistent, day in and day out, being trustworthy, honoring those relationships you're granted with, all those types of things. I would say that those are the things that are what brings you success, and I think those are the things that bring other companies success. And I don't think I'm doing anything revolutionary in that regard.
Do you see yourself as a lifetime Aganorsa? as in like you're gonna finish your career?
I have no plans on leaving. I mean, I don't. I
Yeah,
take it one
of
day.
course not. Of course
I
not.
take it one day at a time. Like I said, I don't think that far. I've never. I can honestly tell you, I've never thought of that. Not
Okay.
because I don't think I will. I just go. You know, I have these projects going on right now, and these are the things I have to get done, and these are the. This is where we want to be for the trade show, and this is where we'd like to be at the end of the year. And I don't really think of that grant. I mean, again, maybe that's a mistake, but I don't think of like, oh, in 20 years, am I going to still be at Aganorsa? I just don't think in those terms.
Well, where do you see Aganorsa in 5 years? Because I know you're goal orientated. I know you have to plan. I know you probably have a 60-month rolling plan for yourself. So where do you see Aganorsa in 5 years?
Uh, so I think we'd like to see deeper into you know that brand awareness, so deeper into that stratosphere of consumers, where we're a brand that you ask somebody, hey, what, you know, you smoke cigars? Yeah, I like cigars. Well, which ones you smoke? Oh, I like XYZ and Aganorsa. You know that, and I think that is what I would like to see. I'd like to see it be, and again, like I said, Terence Reilly, who's he? You know, I'd like the company to be greater than any person in the company, and be a brand in and unto itself.
If you had to put a market penetration number since 2017, where do you feel Aganorsa was for market penetration pre-17 versus now?
I would say we're much deeper. Again,
I
it's
would
hard for
agree.
me to say like what percentage or anything like that, but certainly much further than we were. But a long way to go. A long way to go. One thing that being in stores, as I get older, the the grind of traveling wears on you more than it used to. But I certainly, one, I love being in the stores, and two, the value of being in the store. You do an event and, oh, never heard of you, never heard of you, you know, or you have new employees you're doing a training with. Oh, I've never heard of the brand. I still hear that all the time. So there's a long way to go. You know, there's a long way to still travel.
See, I think some of us that are like cigar nerds are just surprised when people say, "I don't know who you are. I don't know who Terrence." But again, like I through the years, you and I have met many times in person. So for me, it's just kind of like, how do you not know about this brand? But I take, I often forget how much of a cigar smoker I am and how much I live inside this world. So I oftentimes have to step back and not be like, "How do you not know about them?" Or
Just keep
know.
preaching the gospel. Just keep preaching the gospel. That's all we ask people to do. You know, the more you know, the more people that are talking about it. You know, again, ultimately long term, it's a bad sign if you learned about Aganorsa from me. We want them to learn about it from you and from consumers. That's really where. That's why I said that passion for the project, the product is the only metric of success. Is that the companies that are really successful, most of those people learned about the brand from their uncle, from their friend, from something like that. They didn't meet the national sales manager of the company, and that's how they found out about it. That's not how I'm sure the case of some of the, you know, the bigger brands that you can think of.
No, it's very true. That's very true. So here in closing, you are somebody that's very well read. You've talked about how you are an extensive reader, unless I misunderstood you.
I like to read.
Um, what are you reading right now? And part two to that, what is your favorite nonfiction or fiction?
I would say as time has gone on, I read more nonfiction. I'll answer the second part first. Nonfiction than fiction, only because it's easier to read. Like a lot, you know, some of the great novels are real commitment,
Sure.
and you really need to dedicate a lot of time and energy to appreciate them to the extent that
And
I
their
feel is
series
necessary.
too.
Yeah, so overall, I would say I read a lot more nonfiction than I read fiction. However, you know, fiction is still my favorite, and I'm reading Marcel Proust, In Search of Lost Time right now.
What's your favorite fiction series you've read?
Series.
Like, were you into Stephen King, where you read every one of his books, or the Harry Potters, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid and stuff like that. I mean, like the Green Mile series, I read that when I
Hmm.
was. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say most of that stuff I enjoyed when I was a kid, and I can't think of too much that I would say now that I would love or anything like that. But certainly when I was younger, yeah.
You also have a son. How are you influencing him to read? Is he a reader? Is he following you on that? Are you buying him
No, he's not.
series of like books you
He's not a reader,
liked?
but I make him read because I think it's important to read, and I think reading is a very important skill. And I think if you can read well, it's still a huge help for you in life in a lot of ways. So he does read. I would say he doesn't enjoy it. He just probably wouldn't do it as much if I didn't force him to. And there's books that I feel are good books to read when you're at the age he is, and I get him to read them. So he's probably more well read than the average bear, but I wouldn't say he's not a voracious reader.
Do you guys read series together? Like, hey, let's start this and talk
No,
about it?
it's more things that I read when I was young that I'll have him read. Whether it's Outsiders, Catcher in the Rye, The
Mm.
Pigman, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I read Catcher in the Rye. It's got not a goddamn thing to do about baseball. And yeah, I had to read that one. That was a little dry book for me. Um, are you into sci-fi at all, or are you into mystic
More
or
when I was younger, I read some L. Ron Hubbard stuff and those types of
L.
things. But
Ron
again,
Hubbard? Okay, okay.
oh, I'm sorry, not L. Ron Hubbard. Isaac Asimov. Isaac Asimov.
I was gonna
Isaac
say I didn't
L. Ron
realize you
Hubbard,
were
Scientology.
Scientology.
Although he was a science fiction writer, but
Yeah, but he was a terrible one from everything I've been told.
no, Isaac Asimov is who I was talking about.
If you had to pick out your favorite book in high school, what would it be, and how did it change from college?
It was in high school. It was Catcher in the Rye. That was my favorite.
And what was it in college?
In college, I read a lot in college, so like it would be hard to pick out a single book in college. Maybe Lolita. Um, that
What
would
was
be
your
up
favorite
there.
philosopher?
Nietzsche.
Yeah, he's tough. He's tough to read sometimes. I've had to have like multiple books in front of me to understand some of his stuff, but he's very very good.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I feel he's one of the overall. I mean, not that there are any of them, but like he writes a lot in aphorism. So you can read small sections of Nietzsche, and kind of benefit where you don't have to read everything. It's more like he kind of hits you with zingers, where if with Kant or Hegel or something like that, it's a massive commitment to figure out what the hell they're talking about. Whereas Nietzsche, I mean, it might be a difficult passage, but if you read the passage, it's kind of self-sustaining. It's like you got something out of that 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 you didn't have to read the whole book to learn about.
Did you ever get into like Friedman or Hayek or any of those?
No,
No, no, you didn't get into like the economical philosophical stuff.
not as much. Not really. I mean, I read Marx, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it's kind of
I'm more,
required.
yeah, but more from again, I more philosophically than political economy and all that stuff.
So, if you had to choose the perfect job for your son, how would you push it? Would you push him to
No,
follow in
let him
your
do.
footsteps, or
No,
let him
let
do
him.
his
No,
own
no,
thing?
no, no. Do it makes you happy. Don't do, and only if it would make him happy. But I'd like him to do whatever he finds rewarding and fulfilling.
If you're willing to share with us, what's one piece of advice you would give a new parent or young parent with a son raising them today?
I would say uh, patience and your son's not your friend. Those are the two.
What do you mean by your son's not your friend?
Well, he's not your buddy. I mean, I think as a parent, you're kind of you're not doing your job. If like when people say, "Oh, my son's my best friend," I mean, he's not my best friend. I don't believe in that. Like your friend is a different position. I have a responsibility to him
Correct.
to ensure that he develops the ability to handle life and to to grow and develop and be self-sustaining, and at one point be able to go out there and not need me anymore. At least as a child, I don't think your child can be your best friend and do a good job of parenting. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I think it's a risk, because it's you want to be liked, and you want to kind of be buddies and that kind of thing. But I think sometimes that comes at the cost of the kid developing in the right way.
As a father of almost a 5-year-old daughter, the hardest thing for me, and I've had conversations with my parents and actually Abe and several others, I'm like, I just don't want her hating me for the minute. And they're like, she can hate you for the minute and love you for the lifetime. And there's a difference in
Yeah.
that. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of
I
what you're
know for
getting
sure.
at?
Again, I mean, I wasn't thrilled at everything my parents did, and I look back a lot of it now and go, oh, thank God they did that, or thank God they didn't let me do that, or whatever it is. So, again, a child is not an adult. It doesn't understand the realities of the world and the long term consequences of things, and it's not an equal relationship. So, at times they're not going to necessarily like you, but as long as they don't like you for the right reasons, long term it'll all work out.
Right? As long as you're not like a terrible father,
No.
beating them and everything.
If you're putting cigarettes out on them, yeah, that's obviously a really
Well, that's not ideal.
yeah. That's a bad way to be. But again, if you're running a popularity contest, that's a very bad, again, for a lot of things, as a boss, as a teacher, as anything like that, your responsibilities go beyond them liking you. I mean, you're in that position, whether father, boss, teacher, mentor, you're not going to always be liked necessarily, and sometimes that's the price for doing your job well.
No, it's very, and it's hard for me.
Not everyone likes to be liked. I mean,
As to
nobody wants
like,
to have people be mad at them,
I hate
or
my
be,
daughter crying. Like
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
stand.
I think it'd be harder for me with a daughter. I think I'd be more of a sissy.
it.
But I don't have a daughter, so.
What is a movie what is one of your favorite childhood, and this will be the last question today. What's one of your favorite childhood movies that you got to re-experience with your son?
Stand By Me. I enjoyed that
Oh,
as a kid, and then I got to watch. It's funny to watch it with
yes.
him too, because he was so confused by he's like, how can these kids smoke cigarettes? Were they allowed to back then? I'm like, no, they stole them from their parents. They're like, they stole from their parents. And then they're like, how could they be in the woods for 2 days? Like, do their parents know where they are? Like, he had a lot of questions about like, how could this happen? So it was cool to see his perspective on it, and even to this day, when I want him to tell the truth, I go, like I said, is that true? And he'll say yes. I'm like, do you swear on your mother's good name? And he'll only do that if he's really telling the truth. So that was a cool movie.
Does he always have a comb?
No, he never. In fact, he never has a comb. Yeah.
For those of you that have not seen Stand By Me, it's one of Rob Reiner's greatest movies that he ever made. And it's a Stephen King book that you would not realize is
it's a short
Stephen
story.
King.
Yeah, it's from it's the body in Stephen King. It's from Four Seasons.
Yep, and it is a fantastic short story and a great movie. I thought Rob Reiner did a fantastic job. It's one of my favorite childhood movies as well. So, well, Terrence, thank you so much for coming on. I think this was informative. I think I threw some stuff at you that I don't think you've ever been asked before on shows. So that's always fun to kind of give you something new, because you do a ton of these. So
No, it was great. It's always a pleasure. It was great questions, and I hope everyone at home enjoyed the answers.
You and Steve Saka are some of my biggest draws, so that says a lot. But thank you so much for coming on. As you know, Aganorsa always has a home here at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. Stick around here for the end. But until we see you all again, thank you so much for watching yet another live episode of the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here in the Smoking Studios. And until we see, we got to do. I've been working out a little bit. There you go. Hey, we don't see Terrence's, but Terrence's arm is the model for the arm on the leaf.
That's why it's so anemic looking.
So, and by the way, Bruce, thank you so much. Bruce bought a 5-pack of the Rare Fusion Robustos during the show tonight. So thank you very much. And until we see you all again, smoke what you like, smoke as much fucking Aganorsa as you can, and have a great, great rest of your